Hi there, this is Grumpy Opinions. Let's get on with the show.
Hello? Is it TV you're looking for?
Yeah, sorry about that. Halo, just in case you don't know, is a new TV show on Paramount Plus, based on the now 21-year-old video game franchise set in a space-travelling future where humanity is locked in a long war with a super-religious alien alliance called the Covenant. As well as space marines, they have to use 9-foot-tall genetically enhanced super soldiers called Spartans to fight them. And none of them is as tough as the Master Chief Petty Officer 117 or John to his mates. And in the 20 years that this franchise has been running, there have been various attempts to try and turn it into a film, but finally, it landed in TV land. So let's just find out what it's all about. The show starts out on a desert planet where some rebels are talking smack about the UNSC Alliance whilst hanging out, and an old Scottish dude tells the young bucks about these unkillable Spartans, while the base leader gets grumpy because his daughter's off hanging out outside the base. And trouble is, her and her pals are getting high off local plants when they run into some weird aliens who proceed to just murder them all in the face and then chase her back to base, where they end up setting about laying waste to absolutely everybody. Until that is, a whole team of Spartans, the fabled Spartans, drop in and take them down. But not fast enough to save the girl's dad, or indeed anybody else except her. Then the Spartans track the Covenants back to their ship, and they find an alien dig site where some strange artifact lights up when John touches it, and it gives him visions of his past, of some repressed memories. It also scares off the Covenant dude, who then slams into the wee lassie, knocking her out cold. So Chief sticks her on a ship and flies her back to secret base, while the rest of his team clear up and do paperwork or something, I suppose. Meanwhile, back at the secret base, creepy Dr. Halsley is right keen on knowing what this is all about, whilst the top brass really kinda isn't into it. And the expert on alien things, well, she just wants to chat to the wee lassie and make sure she's okay. Of course, she isn't entirely keen on having basically been abducted by her enemies after all her pals and family were murdered by aliens. And also Keyes isn't pleased that her general dad tells her that sadly, young Kwan got dead of bureaucracy on a special order, and it's all actually her mum's fault. Her mum's the creepy doctor. But when this order finally gets back through to John, he's like, actually no, I don't think I want to do that. And even when High Command drop the O2 levels in his ship and his suit, he fights back and manages to lock out the autopilot, but it's too late because they've already crash-landed down in the base. That's right up until he touches the magical artifact again, and boom, it not only knocks out all the power in the base and their guns, it powers their ship straight back up and they take right back off and fly away. And everyone's like, what? Except for Creepy Doctor and the other Spartans, who all seem, kind of happy about this. Oh yeah, and there was a scene where the Covenant have a weird human kid who's important for some reason and likes comics, but it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. So what did I think? Well, honestly, I don't think it really matters if you're a fan of the Halo games or not watching this, because either way, you're probably going to find this episode is a bit of a mess, and is also far too thinly sketched out and badly put together for you to really like it a lot. As far as I've heard, this is completely separate in continuity from the game franchise and the books and the comics, so it's also set far earlier in the story than any of that, so basically this is completely new ground, which is fine theoretically, especially for new viewers. And I'm really not fussed about the lore. I've played most of the games, but frankly, yeah, each one was kind of its own little sort of mini story with some loose arcs and things going over, but yeah, none of that's really important to watch this show. So taking this as you would any new TV show, it's pretty mediocre. It's not great for a first episode. The story isn't very compelling, the characters are paper thin and really not very well established. Kind of like worse than Foundation, the Apple TV show, which I kept thinking about when I saw this, because Foundation is bad. It's a bad show. It's really, really horribly written. It's all over the place, the story doesn't make much sense, the characters are terrible, and the one good redeeming factor was it looked fantastic. Whereas this is like a $200 million TV show with something like, 15 to 20 million per episode. And yet this looks like a Sci-Fi Channel piece of rubbish. The sets are wonky, they're cheap and naff looking, they're generic. The CGI of the Covenant guys just looks terrible, embarrassing frankly. And there's some really bad shots here. And especially shots of the Master Chief and his guys. You can tell when they've become CGI because they're leaping around like the Hulk in that old movie. There's this horrible weightless feel to most of the animation, And also the weird logic holes, like the chief manages to kill these bad guys with about 5 seconds of gun blast from this minigun. But then earlier on, people were shooting at it, like 100 people all had their guns trained on that door, including that minigun, and it didn't kill those guys. I mean, makes sense. I mean, that's straight up like exactly what happened with the Demogorgon at the end of season 1 of Stranger Things. I mean, remember that? Like, where one guy with a baseball bat could hurt it because, you know, he's a main character and has plot armor, but bizarrely 10 guys with machine guns pointing right at it couldn't do any damage. Same crap, different show. But on a scene-to-scene level, the basic cinematography here is really boring. It's flat, it's dull, it's unengaging, it has no style or substance. Almost every conversation seems to be shot in extreme close-up, so you can't even see the backgrounds. And yeah, when we finally got these shots at the end, I almost gasped because it actually looks good. It looks, wow, you could see, you know, production value, expanse, space. It actually felt great, and it felt similar to stuff I'd seen in the games, but regardless of that, it just felt better than everything else that was in this show. And I really wish I could say some positive things about this, because clearly, you know, there's a lot of money being spent on this. But honestly, the old Rooster Teeth cartoons using the Halo engine, like Red vs. Blue, they're more engaging than this. They look better than this. I mean, even, you know, Natasha McElhone, who's probably the biggest name on the show, at least at this point. I mean, she's a good actress, and yet here she looks kind of just embarrassed. She's just sort of blankly staring at stuff with a sort of vague expression. I mean, the opening shots of her are horrible, just standing in this room nodding. What did the director say? Just look at the screen and nod a little. It'll work in the edit. And I'll give it this, the guy playing the Master Chief, he's fine. As was the kid playing Quan. You know, I mean, they're not given much to work with here, and she's been given the worst haircut in the world. But, you know, he took his helmet off, and I don't care. Like, some people apparently are really, really not happy about this, some fans. But, yeah, honestly, couldn't care less. He's not Judge Dredd. You know, there's no reason why we shouldn't see his head. I mean, we've definitely seen his eyes and his helmet off in one of the games at least once, I remember that. So I honestly couldn't care less. They cast an actor, he took the helmet off, fine. And yeah, I will also accept that this is only episode 1, so we do have a mystery, we do have a setup, we have an ongoing thing. You know, they've opened a lot of mystery boxes, but what they failed to do is actually set up character relationships. They failed to set up who people are, other than the Spartans are cold, inhuman figures, and they don't have any memory. They've obviously blanked their memories. Sure, okay, but that's not enough to really work with. I don't care about any of the characters here. I don't understand who this show is for, because the fans are grumbling because it's not enough like the games and the comics and the books, and anybody else watching this, unless they're really, really easily pleased by just shooty bang bang regardless of quality, are probably not going to like it. I mean, honestly, I can't really recommend this. I would recommend instead you go online and you beg, borrow or steal or hunt down a copy of Space Above and Beyond. Remember that old TV show? Well, that TV show is 100 times better than this. And that was filmed like nearly 25 years ago for what was at the time a modest budget, but it's the same sort of style and it's actually a lot better. So yeah, I've seen better elsewhere. I mean, there's other shows, there's The Expanse out there, there's all the Star Treks, there's Battlestar Galactica, I mean, God, even Star Trek Discovery. You know, at least it looked better than this. But yeah, so save yourself the bother. I'll maybe check out more of this later down the line. I'm probably not going to turn this into a regular review series. But as far as episode 1's concerned, it's an hour of your life you could spend doing something better. In fact, play any of the Halo games and you will have a far more entertaining time than this, or watch one of the other billions of TV shows out there. But that's just me. And these have just been my grumpy opinions on Halo the TV show.